question, and it should be a focus of the city council. What's the definition of an expert? Somebody who lives over 100 miles away or something like that. We need to do a better job of who we hire and why we're hiring consultants. There's been, when I have decided to run, I've talked to a lot of local businesses, and they're very frustrated that they don't feel like they have an opportunity to work with the city on projects. And so I would even maybe step it up a little bit by saying we should give preferential treatment to not just Bloomington, but local businesses when we're bidding work. And I don't want to put a number on it, or a percentage, but I'd be willing to pay more for local work than out of town. Anybody else?
So I think Chip had a great idea. And so a few things, I know, and I've gone to city council meetings and listened to them as well. It seems like we have a lot of no-bid contracts where we're giving contracts to people outside of the city. One recent example was the wayfaring signs, I think that's what they call it. There was a local bidder and a non-local bidder. And so a little bit concerned that we didn't choose locally. I know they were, I think, a little bit more expensive, but maybe is what Chip said. If we give locally, then maybe that turns around a little bit more with what Karen said, and we actually have more economic development because we do that. So that's what I would say to that.
Just to add to that a little bit, so I think the program Karen was referring to is the Chambers Make Your Money Mean More. Make Your Money Mean More.
It's part of that.
Yeah, so it's really just continuing this initiative that we all invest locally. I would add that there are a lot of initiatives in our community that have been spurred by local talent and local residents. It would be really great for us to think about ways to leverage those proposals. I serve on the board of directors for BCAI School of Arts, which is connected to BCPA and in the Franklin Park neighborhood, also in my ward. And I know that there's been a lot of discussion in that little enclave to think about proposing a structure to revamp the old Mennonite building and really create a multi-use business, if you will. The Foundry, I shop there all the time, all of the shops there. So I just think that there are a lot of exciting and interesting ways to do this, and we just have to seek them out and support those who have the vision.
Everyone has done a great job of sharing with you what's going on in the city when it comes to growing locally and buying locally. However, we have one time a year that we advertise this buy and shop locally is one Saturday. Well, how come we can't do that every month, every year on a continual basis, and make sure that everybody knows that we need to put our dollars back into our community, and it helps our community, keep, like Jeff always say, shop locally, grow locally. So everyone has done a great job of explaining that. I just wanted to add in that tidbit of why don't we expound on what we already are doing.
I'm a firm believer that you can only control what's around you, your own space. I buy local. All right, we have another question from the floor, please. Yes, sir.
The mayor recently stated that once the new council is seated, he'd like to bring the issue of sanctuary city back. I wonder if you could get some response from the candidates as to where they might stand on that.
Okay, anyone wish to speak to the issue of sanctuary city?
Good question. And maybe some of you know that I was a proponent of the Welcoming City Ordinance. Attended my first march with that, spoke in front of the council several times. And to me, it's not a sanctuary city. It's about respecting people that are in your community. People are not illegal. Yes, they're here undocumented, but I think a couple of things that are important on that issue to consider is the fact that we want people to report crimes. And if they don't feel comfortable doing that because they think the police department will then inform them of ICE, they're not going to report crimes. Secondly, as we know from some of the stories, there's some violence going on in our community. And I think we want our police department totally focused on that versus trying to help out ICE. So I think we need to keep our police department focused on those kind of things. So that's what I would say about that.
Thank you. Any others wish to speak to the issue?
Very good question. And my thought on it is that when you look at doing a welcoming city, a sanctuary city, you have to be consistent with your neighbors. We're unique in that we have a twin city. And we have to include, I feel, our police force in making those decisions, because really that's who enforces this, and doing anything without everybody's involvement would be a mistake.
Okay. Anyone else?
First of all, I want to, is this on? I want to clarify, it's not sanctuary city, welcoming city. Those really are two different things. Sanctuary city is a much more comprehensive idea. I was one of the
all to get turned off. Sorry.
It didn't sound right to me.
Yeah. Oh, mercy. Batteries did it.
Okay, I'm going to use my mom
Good.
voice. Do I need to repeat what I just said? Okay, so we're talking about a welcoming city ordinance, and I was one of the individuals who asked that we pull that back from the agenda. And I think it's fair to say that among the 5 of us who signed that letter taking it off the agenda, we're very interested in a community conversation about this. It's a very complicated and we saw a very, very divisive issue that I know myself, I was very worried that we were turning this into something that was doing the opposite of what it intended to do. I also have a lot of questions personally about why we would write an ordinance that tell the police to follow the law. And that's basically what the police are doing. They're doing what normal is doing. I think that we can get those ideas out there a lot more effectively by connecting with people and talking with people. There are Welcoming America is a project that's going on in cities all over this community that involve our faith community, our business community, certainly a role for government. But I don't think an ordinance is a kind of one and done thing that's going to solve something that's very, very complicated and emotionally charged.
Passing the mic, obviously, but I'll put it back in its place just to give them illusion.
Mom voice or teacher voice, whichever one. I actually taught many immigrant students throughout my professional life, and I know that this kind of welcoming city ordinance is actually something that would make them feel like they're more part of the community. At the same time, I think we have to be careful that isn't all we're doing. So I really take Karen's point that we can think about ways of framing an ordinance so that all of our community members feel like they are part of this fabric in which we live. But we also need to really think about, so what does that mean? And in education, I spent a lot of time developing policy and more time meaningfully implementing policy. And it's a different thing, and that's really where it comes to play. You can have notebook after notebook of curricula or policy, but if you're not working on the ground trying to figure out, does this make sense? How do we make this better for everybody? How do we continually reevaluate what we're doing? Then it doesn't matter. The ordinance gets dusty, so to speak, and it doesn't really go anywhere. So I think there has to be a lot of things happening in tandem.
you know? Well, again, ditto to what everybody has said and made good points. And we have to remember that we have to include everyone, like Julie said. Everyone has, and Karen, everyone has to come to the table. This is a hard thing, that welcoming city ordinance versus the welcoming city. Like Karen said, it is two different things. And we have to really be very careful of how we propose it or present it, I guess you could say. Lot of pieces to put together. We want to make sure that the people are feeling comfortable and welcomed in the city and be able to stand up and report crime. Because when they don't report crime, that criminal continues on and on and on, and it hurts our city. And so a lot of the people that are undocumented, they work. You know, they work right here in our community, and I want to savor that. You know, they are part of the city, so we have to come up with something, and it's not going to be easy. Unfortunately, it just won't be easy. What else?
I've spoken about this at City Council. I completely empathize with those that are treated poorly or unfairly. We are a welcoming city, and my role model is Mother Teresa. If you want to go and solve issues, social issues, you get into the community and work one-on-one. There are laws to protect victims that are undocumented. It is basically a federal issue. Thank you.
Any other, go ahead, Sharon, sorry. I'm not going to. All right, another question from the floor, please. Yes.
So the Grossinger Motor Arena, AKA the Coliseum, has at the very least in the last couple of years been controversial. What ideas or plans do you have to turn this into an economic prize for our city?
Okay, address the Coliseum issue first.
That's the $64 million question.
22.
No, if someone has a solution to that, I think we should have a parade and a monument put downtown in place of, no, I'm kidding. Okay.
Yes, like Donna said, it's a thorn in our side. However, you got to understand, yes, we do have every year a deficit in that building, $500,000 to $600,000. When you look at the broader picture, though, it brings in lots of tax money to the city, way over the $500,000 to $600,000. So, yes, we should be sitting down at the table and trying to figure out how to close that gap of that deficit every year. And the only way to do that is sit down and hearing, talking about it and trying to create a solution for that. I say we need, even though it's a small venue, but we need more events going on there. And we need quality events that's going to bring all types of people together. That means the African Americans, that means the Hispanic people, that means the Indian people, that means religious, anything. But we need more activities there. It's not enough going on. And maybe somehow if we continue that, like the BCPA has done, they have built their event system up. They built it up. And they're doing pretty good. So now we need to do, I believe we need to do the same thing with the Coliseum. I know it's a thorn in our side, but that eventually we will get it right. I believe that with talking.